Right now, something is unfolding in our solar system that has never been witnessed in the entire chronicle of astronomical observation. And I am not using hyperbole when I assert that this could radically reshape our comprehension of physics itself. The interstellar object we have been monitoring, designated 3I divided by Atlas, has just initiated a phenomenon so strange, so utterly without precedent, that scientists are racing to formulate an explanation within the bounds of conventional theories. But here is what deeply concerns me as a theoretical physicist. Every ordinary explanation we have put forward simply disintegrates under the scrutiny of the observational evidence. Thus, we are confronted with a question that makes even the most experienced researchers profoundly uneasy. What precisely did 3I divided by Atlas set in motion as it traversed our solar system? And, more critically, why is this phenomenon escalating as we near October 29th, the moment of perihelion, when this mysterious visitor will make its closest approach to our Sun? Allow me to transport you back to October 15th, a mere fortnight before the crucial perihelion passage. The Hubble Space Telescope, reoriented specifically to observe this enigmatic traveler during its final approach, recorded something that should not be possible according to our current grasp of electromagnetic physics. A disturbance not in the fabric of space itself, though that would be remarkable enough. Not a warping of space-time, for which Einstein's equations would at least offer a framework for analysis. No, what Hubble observed was a ripple in something far more peculiar. The local electromagnetic field in the vicinity of 3I, divided by Atlas, seemed to be fluctuating in patterns that radiated outwards like waves on a cosmic ocean, stretching for millions of kilometers in all directions. Dr. Sarah Chen at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics was the first to identify the anomaly concealed within the spectroscopic data. She described it to me personally just yesterday, and I could discern the blend of exhilaration and incredulity in her voice. "Moyo," she stated, "we are detecting coherent electromagnetic oscillations coming from 3I divided by Atlas with a frequency of exactly 1.42 gigahertz. That is the hydrogen line, the most fundamental frequency in the cosmos." But here is the part that defies logic. Natural sources that produce emissions at this frequency should display random phase shifts, statistical fluctuations, and chaotic variations. What we are observing demonstrates phase coherence over measurement periods that extend for hours. That is not a natural occurrence. That is structured. Consider for a moment what she is describing. The hydrogen line at 1.42 gigahertz corresponds to the frequency emitted when a hydrogen atom's electron flips its spin state. It is often referred to as the universal frequency because any technologically sophisticated civilization would instantly grasp its importance. SETI researchers have been listening to this frequency for decades, hoping to detect artificial signals from far-off civilizations. And now, an interstellar body passing through our solar system is transmitting at this exact frequency with an impossible level of coherence. According to Chen's statistical analysis, the likelihood of this happening through random natural events is less than 1 in 10 million. However, the electromagnetic anomaly is only the initial layer of this ever-deepening puzzle. On October 18th, a mere 3 days after the first Hubble observation, something even more disquieting took place. Amateur radio enthusiasts across the Northern Hemisphere started to report identical phenomena. Unaccountable interference patterns materialized across numerous frequency bands at the same time, a cascade of disruptions that persisted for precisely 47 seconds before disappearing entirely. These were not unconnected incidents happening randomly around the world. they manifested in a specific geographical arrangement, creating an arc across latitudes from 35 to 55 degrees north. This pattern, when drawn on a map, forms a curved line that points directly at the position of 3I divided by Atlas in the sky at the exact time of the disturbances. Marcus Rodriguez, a telecommunications engineer in Colorado with 3 decades of experience in signal propagation analysis, managed to capture detailed recordings during one of these occurrences. He sent the data to me, and I must confess, analyzing it sent a shiver down my spine. The interference was not random noise, nor was it the effect of solar flares or atmospheric ionization. It exhibited a pattern, a mathematical pattern. Rodriguez conducted a Fourier analysis, deconstructing the intricate signal into its constituent frequencies, and uncovered something astounding. The interference pattern was composed of repeating sequences, pulses divided by exact intervals, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. This is the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical progression that is found throughout the natural world. While it's true that this sequence appears in nature, discovering it embedded in radio interference that is synchronized with the position of an interstellar visitor goes beyond mere coincidence and ventures into the territory of the truly unexplainable. Now, as a theoretical physicist, my professional discipline requires me to rule out every conventional explanation before considering more extraordinary possibilities. So let us look at the options that would permit us to hold on to our comfortable beliefs about natural cosmic events. Could these phenomena be the result of heightened solar activity that just happens to coincide with the approach of 3I divided by Atlas? The Sun has been relatively calm during this cycle, with no major coronal mass ejections or significant flare events recorded during the relevant period. Data on the solar wind from the Parker Solar Probe indicates normal conditions. This explanation is immediately dismissed. Perhaps we are witnessing some unusual form of cometary outgassing. Typical comets eject water vapor, carbon dioxide, and dust particles. But electromagnetic emissions with phase coherence and organized radio interference that encodes mathematical sequences, there is no known mechanism by which sublimating ices or escaping gases could generate such effects. The laws of physics as we know them simply do not allow for this interpretation. What about the interactions between the magnetic field of 3I divided by Atlas and the interplanetary medium? This initially seems more plausible. Charged particles moving along magnetic field lines can indeed produce electromagnetic radiation through processes like synchrotron emission. However, there is a critical issue. These natural processes generate broadband radiation across a wide range of frequencies simultaneously, not narrowband emissions at specific, meaningful frequencies. And they certainly do not embed mathematical progressions into terrestrial radio interference patterns. This explanation also fails to hold up under examination. So, we find ourselves in a deeply uncomfortable position. Every mundane explanation has been refuted. Every effort to fit these observations into our current understanding of natural astrophysics has been met with insurmountable contradictions. And now, just this morning, October 21st, with a mere 8 days left until perihelion, the situation has intensified in ways that propel us even further beyond conventional comprehension. The James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most advanced infrared observatory, has detected something that has the entire astronomical community in a state of emergency consultation. 3I divided by Atlas is emitting thermal radiation in a pattern that contravenes the fundamental principles of thermodynamics. Let me clarify what this signifies. Every object in the universe with the temperature above absolute zero emits thermal energy. The hotter an object is, the more energy it radiates. This relationship is governed by precise mathematical laws that were formulated by Max Planck more than a century ago. These are not mere suggestions or approximations. They are unyielding physical principles that have been confirmed through innumerable experiments and observations. And yet, 3I divided by Atlas appears to be selectively radiating more energy in certain directions than in others, which creates a directional pattern of thermal emission. In conventional physics, this would require either rotation with differing surface temperatures or some kind of focusing mechanism, such as a parabolic reflector. However, spectroscopic analysis indicates that 3I divided by Atlas has a remarkably uniform surface composition and temperature across its entire visible hemisphere. There should be no mechanism that would produce a directional preference. And here is the detail that elevates this from being merely perplexing to genuinely alarming. The direction of the most intense thermal emission is pointed almost directly at Earth, not towards the Sun, which would be logical if solar heating were causing asymmetrical outgassing, and not along its trajectory, which might indicate some kind of propulsion effect. It is aimed directly at our planet, and this aim is maintained with precision as both objects continue on their respective orbits. Dr. James Kento from the European Southern Observatory independently performed the calculations, and his conclusion was stark and unequivocal. Either our understanding of thermal radiation physics is fundamentally flawed, which would invalidate 150 years of established science, he stated, or we are observing a deliberate beaming of energy. There is no third alternative that can reconcile the data with natural phenomena. Deliberate beaming. Ponder that phrase for a moment. It suggests intentionality. It hints at a purpose. It compels us to consider the possibility that 3I divided by Atlas is not simply reacting to its environment through natural physical processes, but is actively directing energy towards a specific target towards us. Now, I want to address something head on because I know what some of you are thinking. Moyo, you're a serious scientist. Why are you even considering these extraordinary interpretations? Why not just concede that we don't understand what's happening yet and wait for more data before jumping to conclusions? And you are absolutely correct to raise that question. Scientific skepticism is one of the greatest strengths of our discipline. But here is what I have learned throughout my career in theoretical physics. Sometimes the universe presents us with observations that are so fundamentally at odds with our expectations that to continue to force conventional explanations becomes more unscientific than to honestly admit that we are witnessing something unprecedented. Allow me to share a historical parallel that exemplifies this principle. In 1967, Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovered radio sources that were emitting pulses with the precision of a clock, exactly 1.337 seconds apart. The signals were so regular, so impossibly precise, that her research team half-jokingly labeled them LGM-1 for little green men. They were embarrassed to even entertain the idea of an artificial origin. It seemed too much like science fiction, too sensational for serious researchers. But you know what? That initial impulse to consider extraordinary explanations was not wrong. It was simply premature. We eventually discovered pulsars, which are rotating neutron stars that produce natural radio beams, and we all breathed a collective sigh of relief. Nature had, after all, provided a conventional explanation. But here is the crucial distinction between that historical case and our current situation with 3I divided by Atlas. Pulsars, once they were understood, fit perfectly within the existing framework of physics. Rotating neutron stars with intense magnetic fields that generate beamed radiation. That is certainly exotic, but it does not violate any fundamental principles. What we are observing now with 3I divided by Atlas does not fit. Not approximately, not with minor adjustments to our models. It fundamentally contradicts multiple independent physical principles at the same time. And that pattern, that signature of multiple violations occurring in concert, is precisely what we would expect to see if we were encountering technology rather than nature. The situation escalated even further just a few hours ago. I received an urgent message from colleagues at the successor facility to the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. They have been conducting continuous radar monitoring of 3I divided by Atlas as it approaches perihelion. And they have detected something that defies any straightforward interpretation. When they transmit radar pulses towards the object, expecting a simple reflection that would allow them to measure its distance and velocity with extreme precision, something unexpected occurs. The return signal arrives with anomalous characteristics. It is not simply bouncing back, as radar would from a solid surface, or scattering off an irregular, rocky body. The returning signal shows evidence of modulation. Someone, or something, appears to be altering the radar echo before sending it back. Dr. Lisa Park, who is the head of the radar astronomy team, described it to me this way. Imagine shouting into a cave and hearing your echo come back. That's normal reflection. Now, imagine shouting into that cave and hearing your echo return, but with additional words inserted into it, words you didn't say. That's what's happening here. We are sending out a simple pulse, and we are receiving back a complex signal that contains information we did not transmit. Information? That word hangs in the air like a question mark written in cosmic fire. And the intensity is increasing as we approach perihelion, as if it is building towards some kind of climactic event. Entire planetary civilizations. Let that sink in for a moment. We are not talking about the electromagnetic output of something the size of a satellite or even a large space. We are contemplating power generation capabilities that are on par with the total energy budget of industrialized worlds. And now we come to what is perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. Since the Mars flyby on October 3rd, when 3I divided by Atlas passed within a mere 29 million kilometers of the red planet, the electromagnetic disturbances we have been detecting are not behaving as we would expect from natural cometary activity. As 3I divided by Atlas continues its approach toward perihelion on October 29th, these disturbances are not diminishing with distance from Mars. They are intensifying, growing stronger, and expanding outward in concentric waves that now extend across nearly 40 million kilometers of space. Dr. Robert Tanaka from Tokyo University's Institute for Cosmic Ray Research has been modeling the propagation patterns, and his preliminary conclusions are deeply unsettling. These are not random electromagnetic fluctuations, he explained during our video conference this morning. They exhibit the characteristics of a carrier wave, similar to how radio stations broadcast information. But here is what concerns me. The energy required to generate electromagnetic disturbances on this scale, extending across tens of millions of kilometers, would necessitate power sources operating at levels we associate with entire planetary civilizations, not individual spacecraft or probes. The signals were so regular, so impossibly precise, that her research team half-jokingly labeled them LGM-1 for little green men. They were embarrassed to even entertain the idea of an artificial origin. It seemed too much like science fiction, too sensational for serious researchers. But you know what? That initial impulse to consider extraordinary explanations was not wrong. It was simply premature. And this brings us face to face with a question that transcends astronomy, a question that touches the very foundation of humanity's place in the cosmos. What exactly did 3I divided by Atlas trigger when it passed Mars on October 3rd? And I use that word trigger deliberately, not produce, not generate. Trigger. Because the more data we collect, the more it appears that 3i divided by Atlas did not create these phenomena through its own internal processes. Instead, it seems to have activated something that was already here, lying dormant, waiting. The electromagnetic disturbances are propagating not just from 3i divided by Atlas itself, but from multiple points scattered throughout the inner solar system, as if the visitor's passage through our neighborhood flipped a switch, awakening a network we never knew existed. This hypothesis terrifies me more than any other possibility. It suggests that our solar system may contain infrastructure that we did not build and did not detect. Ancient technology, perhaps millions of years old, placed by visitors who came and went, leaving behind monitoring stations or communication relays that activate when specific conditions are met. And 3i divided by Atlas, with its hollow structure, its impossible deceleration, its precisely timed trajectory past Mars and now towards the Sun, might be the key that was designed to activate this ancient network. I want to be absolutely clear about something crucial. Nothing I have described constitutes definitive proof of artificial origin or technological activity. Every single observation I have shared could, in theory, be the result of natural processes that we simply do not yet understand. New physics, exotic phenomena operating under principles we have not yet discovered. The universe has surprised us before with natural explanations for seemingly impossible observations, and it will certainly surprise us again. But here is what I know as a theoretical physicist who has spent decades studying the fundamental laws that govern reality. When multiple independent anomalies converge simultaneously, when conventional explanations fail across multiple unrelated physical domains, when the pattern of violations matches exactly what we would predict from engineered systems rather than natural processes, the probability calculation shifts dramatically. And right now, that calculation is pointing in a direction that challenges everything we thought we understood about our cosmic isolation. And here is what makes the next 8 days absolutely critical. On October 29th, 3i divided by Atlas will reach perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, at a distance of approximately 1.36 astronomical units. That is the moment when it will be moving at its absolute maximum velocity, subjected to the most intense solar heating and radiation it will experience during its entire passage through our system. And critically, it will be positioned on the far side of the Sun from Earth's perspective. We will not be able to observe it directly during this window. Our ground-based telescopes will be useless, staring into the Sun's overwhelming glare. There will be a gap in our surveillance that will last for several weeks. Think about the implications. Whatever 3i divided by Atlas is doing, whatever it is building towards with these intensifying electromagnetic disturbances, will reach its peak precisely when we cannot watch. Avi Loeb has warned that if this object intends to use the Sun's gravity well to execute an Oberth maneuver, to slow itself down and become gravitationally captured by our solar system, perihelion represents the optimal moment. A small thrust applied at maximum velocity produces enormous changes in the final trajectory. And if those electromagnetic disturbances we have been tracking represent some form of propulsion system warming up, building power, and preparing for activation, then October 29th might be the day everything changes. But there is another possibility that troubles me even more deeply. What if the electromagnetic network that 3i divided by Atlas appears to have triggered is not designed for propulsion or communication? What if it serves a different purpose entirely? The directional thermal beaming toward Earth, the organized radio interference patterns, the radar signal modulation, all of these phenomena could represent scanning activity, reconnaissance, a detailed observation of our planet, our technology, our electromagnetic signature as a civilization. Sometimes the universe presents us with observations that are so fundamentally at odds with our expectations that to continue to force conventional explanations becomes more unscientific than to honestly admit that we are witnessing something unprecedented. Allow me to share a historical parallel that exemplifies this principle. In 1967, Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovered radio sources that were emitting pulses with the precision of a clock exactly 1.337 seconds apart, that we have never been alone, that our solar system contains mysteries that were placed here long before humanity evolved to ask questions about the cosmos,